Now Hello, welcome to part 2 of our CIMA revision strategy video, focused on exam techniques. We're about now to start with part 2 of the session, which will focus on identifying the syllabus area, coming straight from the SAPE framework that we elaborated on from part 1, and then it will also go on to the very next aspect, which has to do with analyzing the question scenario. So welcome to part 2. Thank you very much. Now let's look at the next aspect on our SAPE framework. It's actually what is called S, the syllabus area. Like I mentioned from the beginning, I'm going to come back to this column. If an outcome exists, then there has to be a syllabus area which is associated with that outcome. So the purpose of looking at is to find, you don't want the examiner to say discuss activity-based costing. And everything that you're talking about has got nothing to do with activity-based costing. Maybe you talk about change management, you talk about process costing, all those sort of things. You end up, that's almost like going outside of what is being asked. So the syllabus area gives you an idea based on this outcome that has been framed to me to try and achieve. What are the principles or rules associated with, so that you don't go out of script, so to speak. You try and focus on. So that's why you have to assess the syllabus area. So if they're asking you to discuss the performance management system of a company, you have to then say, okay, well, discuss is the operating verb. Performance management is the syllabus area. So you then have to ask yourself, what are the principles that go into performance management? There's performance planning, there's performance organization, there's reward systems. These are the things. So, which means those should have been disciplined. Then you start thinking about how to use those rules and principles in those syllabus to be able to carry out the discussion. So in that way, you are associating the right syllabus area, the right principles, the right concept with actually the exam verb. So that will be one reason why you have to do it. You're going to see during the revision sessions how we actually take a question, analyze it to interpret what the examiner wants, then how we identify the syllabus area from the question, and how we match it so that we make sure that as we start developing an answer plan, it is not outside the syllabus area. And then we said the next step is actually the A, where you go. It's almost like where you go by analyze the scenario. It's a professional exam, so at the end of the day, it's not about what you know, it's about what you can do. They want to be sure that whatever knowledge you have from the syllabus area, you can apply it to a particular. You're going to come out and be called a chartered global management accountant. It's a professional qualification, not an academic one like you're going to have a normal degree program from the university. So they will almost always, well, barring operational level where they will give you some multiple choice in the first part, or section B where they'll give you brief 5-mark question, explain this, describe this, for which you don't really need a case study. The section B, which accounts for a vast majority of the marks, would normally be based on a scenario, so to speak, or a brief case study. Management level, you're going to have a case study. Strategy is going to be almost basically the same thing. And you find from the CIMA 2015 syllabus, even though they are shifting a few more things to objective, so there's a lot of case studies which is being brought, because they want to be sure that you can apply that knowledge to a typical work setting. So you now go, the third thing is to go and analyze the scenario. Now, there are a number of things you need to look for. It's not by chance that they say ABC is a small company operating in this part of Africa. They could change that scenario and say ABC is a large company operating in this part of the Western world. So sometimes we read this information, there is always a context. Underline the word small. Underline the word Africa. They will sometimes give you information to characterize that company. It's a small company, it's a big company. They will tell you it's an old company, it's a young company. The age could indicate where it is on its industrial product life cycle. It could be growing, it could be stagnating. The part of the world where it might indicate the types of risks that the company might be exposed to. So they'll tell you something about the internal organization of the company, the structure. It's using a decentralized structure, a centralized structure. It's giving you indication of what sorts of practical challenges that, so don't ignore it. Once you see the first paragraph, say ABC is a company, it operates in this part of the market, it structures, read that, because there's an expectation that whatever knowledge and skills that you have from having studied the material, you have to be able to apply it to that scenario. If it's a small company, customize that knowledge to make it sure you demonstrate that this is how it will work for a small company. So if they remove that scenario and say it's a large company, you also have to be able to display how that information will relate to a large company. So you go to that scenario, one, to understand the nature of the company, the challenges of the company, the goals of the company, how the company is structured, the resources. That helps you to know what is it the examiner wants you to apply your knowledge to. Now, obviously, as you read the scenario, keep in mind, you had identified, you had looked at the question requirement, you had checked the syllabus area. So you don't just read the scenario loosely. You have to be reading the scenario in the context of the syllabus area. You know that this question is going to be about performance management. You know that the principles that go into professional, which you've picked up from the syllabus area, that's what you have to recall under exam conditions. It's performance planning, KPIs, those are the various elements. As you're reading the scenario, look for things that spark ideas about KPIs and about KPIs, because so your syllabus area is almost like your lens from which you review the case study. In that way, you ensure there is a proper connect between the syllabus area, the scenario, and the actual operating question, which is the discuss or the evaluate or the recommend or the explain, which is the examiner is trying to achieve. So it is, if there is anything, this is one thing that would ensure that you don't go off script. Have you ever imagined you spend all the time, answer the question, you come out, you think you're going to get in 18 out of 25 on the question, you get the results, it's actually seen 2 out of 25, you start wondering why. You've gone off script. Why have you gone off script? You have not looked at the context, you have not looked at the syllabus area, you've not tried to connect the two of them. That is one thing. So you're going to also see in our face-to-face revision sessions how we actually operationalize this, take a particular question, pick up the syllabus area, look at the scenario, underline the things like the nature of the company, structure and all the rest, and how that gets brought back together in terms of actually answering the exam question. Now we're almost coming to the end of the session.